Yo, it's the Grow Green Podcast. Roll another fat one, puffin' on that first class green. Take another puff, puff, hey. Drifting the clouds up and away. Hear all about cannabis horticulture, plus cultivation, news and entertainment. Not forgetting Datty, the cute Dalmatian. Grow Green is so amazing. We do massive dabs, not talking about the dance move. Grow Green, put your lighters on, my dude. Hash oil, and it's so great. Smoke cannabis every single day. We do massive dabs, not talking about the dance move. Grow Green, put your lighters on, my dude. Hash oil, get that high grade. Smoke cannabis every single day, yo. Grow Green, grow green, grow green, grow green.
Hello out there, how y'all doing? This here CJ Stone, and this is the Grow Green Podcast, episode number 9.
This is Eric Weed. How you guys out there doing today? Today we're going to be talking about flowering and the different stages that your plant goes through when it's in flowering, and the different things it takes to get it lit correctly without it locking up, without it getting deficient, stuff like that. So, what's stage number 1, Mr. CJ Stone?
Well, right off the bat, I know a lot of people are going to be asking, when's the right time to flower? And the biggest thing to keep in mind is that motherfucker's going to stretch about half its size almost.
At least, right? On an average, you can say that the plant's going to stretch twice as big as it is when it finished.
So when you say you have a small plant and you're like, oh, it's too small to flower, keep in mind that you don't want it reaching up into that light. And it's got to have room to grow.
Yeah, that's going to depend on your ceiling height. So things that you've already tried to pre-plan about when you built your room or got everything together, hopefully, is and you had these things already taken into consideration, so you know.
Right. So you're going to put that plant into flower. You're going to change that light cycle to 12-12.
Right,
12
and 12.
Week 1, what are we going to expect? Week 1?
Week 1, transition week, right?
Transition phase, so you're going to need to pay special attention.
Right. Transition phase is going to be where the plant is going to be changed from from vegetative nutrients into flowering nutrients, depending on what you're running. You know, if you're running a one part that doesn't change, like we'll use Veg Bloom for example, it doesn't change. You just have to add extra things into it. And so what you're adding is you're going to add in your potassium and your phosphorus to bring those two things up for the most part to help your bud creation and bud formation start. So what it's going to do the first couple of weeks is going to be what? Stretch, like you said. Yep, stretch, and the first couple of weeks it's going
to stretch,
build up its structure, kind of.
Some nutrients.
How long it's going to be, and
Emerald Harvest, I know, says to use their veg still in that first week.
Yeah, you're still using veg in the first week, but if you notice, they have you add King Cola, which is the phosphorus and potassium booster. So what that does is that allows for a slow transition from a lot of nitrogen into a minimal amount of nitrogen. Do you see what I'm saying? So instead of going from, say, you had let's just say it was, I don't know what the numbers are. Let's just say it was a 7 on nitrogen in the beginning. So you're feeding a 7. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
sure, totally.
You're feeding a 7. Let's just say you're feeding 300 parts per million of nitrogen or something like that. Then all of a sudden, when you switch to the flowering nutrients may be very minimal nitrogen, only a 2 or a 1. So they don't want the plant to go into shock. You know what I mean? So what they're doing is they're allowing you to use still the high amount of nitrogen, but you're bringing up the phosphorus. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Exactly.
So week 1, you're just going to get a little bit of stretching. You're not going to see any buds really quite yet. That'll start happening a little later into week 2. And you'll start seeing...
Depending on the strain you're running, yeah.
Right, this is all strain dependent,
so
of course.
What we're going to try to give you an example of is an 8 to 9 week plant. So keep that in mind for everything that when we talk about the weeks here, your strain, it might be a little bit longer if you're running like a 14 week, or take that into consideration when you do the math. But in a general, like he's saying, the first couple of weeks, even the third week can be stretch. And that's going to be where the plant stretches. And like you said, fills in hardly any buds.
Keep a lookout for nut sacks.
Yeah, definitely. If you haven't sexed your plants or you don't know what you got there, this is going to be the time when you're going to find out if they're males or females. So, depending on what you want to do, but most likely you're going to want to pull out all those males and also pull out anything that looks like a hermaphrodite if you had to happen to have any. I got a message last night. It was undetermined. Somebody sent me a message asking me if it was a male or a female, and I don't know if you saw somebody had posted it online. It was a girl, but she didn't want to say who she was,
Mm-hmm.
so she had somebody else ask. But the post was really blurry, and you could see hairs that had come out. You know, if I don't know if depending on who you are out there, if you know what I'm talking about, there's some hairs that come out of the pistil, and below that it actually had a secondary pistil, and it was not actually a pistil. It was male pre-flowers coming out too, so it had both. So it was like a male and a female. So be aware. Make sure that you continue to watch your plants up until, well, all the way through, obviously. But the first 3 weeks are going to be very important for look, like you said, to look for the male flowers, even on the ones that you pull
pollinate
out.
your females, get them out of there as soon as you see them.
Yep, and continue to watch your females too for male flowers to grow. If it could happen if you stressed them out. That's what a lot of part of this is. A lot of times it's not always bad genetics. People blame genetics, stuff like that. But a big portion of the time it's how good you take care of your plants and veg. If you don't do a good job taking care of them, keeping them healthy, keeping them happy, then they could stress out when they
Sick
go into
plants
flower.
and veg are going to equal sick plants and flower.
Exactly right. So, week 2,
They're
what's the next time?
Week 2 into week 3, they're still going to be stretching, and towards the end of week 3, you're going to typically most strains you're going to start seeing them resin glands starting to pop up. And then the beginning of week 4, that's when everything should start really slowing down as far as stretching goes, and
Yeah.
the buds are really going
By the time 3 weeks are up, usually all my strains are all done stretching. They're still going to continue to grow up as the buds form. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But the building, it's almost like somebody building a building. They build the structure, right? And then they build everything around it, just like a high rise building in the city, similar to a plant. So those first 3 weeks, they're building the structure, and then they're going to fill in.
Like that frame is there, and then you're
Exactly
going to build
right.
everything else on top of it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on what we feed them, that determines how big the building is going to be, or the buds. So that's where the phosphorus and potassium comes in. Those are the most 2 important things you can remember in flower, and making them available to the plants.
Yeah, week 4 is when things start getting really fun. And, it's just the plant's using all of its energy into bud production instead of growing.
Right, exactly. And that's when you're going to see all of the mass amounts of hairs come out in more of a bud formation. And it's at this point where the plant will start creating those resin glands that I typically...
Gonna start getting stinky in there. Make sure you got the carbon filter on full bore at this point.
And let's talk about temperature for budding. What do you typically suggest?
High. Don't want to go any really higher than 80. Lows. Don't really want to go any lower than like 68, 70.
Yeah, that's kind of what I try to stay under. I have been dipping down lately running this LED. It's been really hard to stay above 70 in the night periods.
Some people like to play around with colder temperatures too to bring out different colors.
Colder temperatures can be damaging though when it comes to buds once you get into the later stages, or even in the beginning, depending on how fast you set. But you may want to stay clear of having an issue with bud rot or something like that. So that could be something to keep your eyes out for. Because if you dip below those 70 degrees in the night temperature, you're allowing powdery mildew or bud rot or something to set in at high humidity levels. I typically like to run VPD, so mine are pretty high. Holy cow.
You all right over there?
Yeah, it's those trim session. I got that THC in the nostril still stuck up there. You know, when you're trimming, you ever get that?
Yeah, I thought it was those 3 or 4 dabs you took this morning before the podcast.
Those don't dabs usually to make my nose run, not make me sneeze.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're at week 5.
Yeah, like week 4, week 4, we're gonna have.
Four,
You
week
still continue to
5.
talk about week 4. So another thing that's gonna happen in week 4 is this is gonna be when the plant starts getting all of its calyxes filling in. You'll see all those pods coming out. Do you know what I mean? And they'll look small at first, and they'll be hidden behind the hairs. So week 4, a good thing to identify is to look at the structure of the bud.
Yeah, you'll be able to see exactly where all your bud sites are at this point.
Yep, exactly. And so week 4, we're right around right. Let's just take a little step back here, a few days, depending on what you'll do. At day 21 usually is the latest day. I'll go ahead and pull lowers.
Defoliation.
Mm-hmm.
The latest you want to defoliate is day. You said day 23.
21, 21 is kind of the latest I like to do it.
Like 3 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. So be aware at 3 weeks. That to me that's the end of stretch. To me, typically at the end of 3 weeks is the end of stretch. So the beginning of 4 weeks. So we're still kind of considering that hit there right now. At day 21, we're basically at the beginning of 4 weeks.
So quit fucking with it at 3 weeks.
Yeah, at the end of 3 weeks or so. And because what'll happen then is you can cause it to stress out. And some plants you can even stress them out later than that. I mean, earlier than that. I mean, in some plants, obviously, you could probably take leaves off later on if you had to without stressing them out if they're really stable. But you want to try to, for new plants that you've never grown before, you want to try to be aware of taking the most care of it without stressing it out. And if you're going to defoliate anything, like especially if you're doing screen and green or scrog or sea green or anything like that, you want to be pulling all those lowers out underneath the net because you're probably not going to get anything out of that. So that's another thing to talk about is what's under the net. A lot of people I've seen really a couple of questions lately on a few forums. What is larf? That's what it is. That's shit that's under the net or down low under the plant. So
That bud, it's not really pretty enough to put in a bag and give it to somebody.
the only thing you do is make like edibles or blast it or something, make honey oil out of it. But basically, day 21, clear that out. We'll jump back to 4 weeks, but at the 4 week point, past the time you've started clearing out the bottom, then it'll give a little bit more power to those upper buds that you can go in and you can pick out a few fan leaves, or you could go crazy depending on what your method is at this point. But at 4 weeks and on, I wouldn't do it anymore. Does that make sense?
Totally, dude.
So 4 weeks bud set formation. You know what I mean? So at this point, your buds are forming and they're starting to build up all the way up until week. What did you say? 5 or 6, depending on how the strain is, or whatever. At those points, that will be your high PK weeks, in my opinion. And when I say PK, phosphorus, potassium. What do you think? When is that what you would say? Week 5?
Yep, definitely. I'd say to start breaking out your scope around the end of week 5 too. It's super early, but just to give you an idea of what your trichomes look like and what they will develop into as you go.
At what point they're at, and let's talk a little bit about the trichomes. We can go into that before week 5, but you're going to see the maturity of them by color. At first, they're going to be clear.
They'd be super clear, see-through, little almost upside-down water droplet mushroom shape units, I guess.
Little mushrooms, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. They're like there's a stem and then there's a head on it.
They're very pretty.
Turns into almost a cloudy color, clear, cloudy, opaque.
Right. So week 5 they'll be still pretty clear, and then just going into week 7 or week 6 they'll start turning clearing in up, getting foggy. I guess is the term.
This is on an 8-week strain.
8-week strain, right?
So once they turn cloudy, then they'll turn into an amber color, and then it'll be not all of them. It'll just be one here and there. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it'll be one here and there everywhere, and then all of a sudden before you know it, it'll be a whole bunch. And so at that point you should be cutting down. But but that's just the colors. But before that, you should do a lot of other things.
Yeah, before you actually get to the when you finally are done with your plant. So you say we're week 5, you got clear colored ambers or clear colored trichomes.
Mm-hmm.
Your buds are still developing, so you're still going to be giving it full nutrients at this point. And then going into week 6 to week 7, how soon do you start thinking about flushing? And how can you tell from your plant?
As far as telling from the plant, I kind of use the trichomes to tell. So once I see all the mostly cloudy, I'll start ramping down and bell curving down on my newts. Does that make sense? I won't flush right away, but I'll ramp down my newts for the next week, and I'll just kind of watch. And when they're cloudy, if they start to turn amber within that week, then I'll continue to just drop down, and then I'll start to flush the following week.
Okay.
So if we were at week 6, right?
Week 6, you're seeing some cloudiness.
The end of week 5, I just started getting cloudy. By the beginning of week 6, I'm starting to get mostly cloudy. So then I would start ramping down my feed to about half what I was feeding, starting to kind of suck some of those nutrients out. Obviously, I run cocoa, so I'm doing a lot of runoff. So another thing we didn't talk about is when you go in from veg to flower, you should do a good flush to try to clean all your nutrients out as well, or a tea. You don't have to clean them all the way out. Like I said, you're bell curving down by using the veg nutrients first, but just wanted to touch on that before we got too far. But yeah, so at week 6, I'm cloudy, started ramping down for that week. So by the beginning of week 7, I should be reading about half of what I was coming out the bottom of my
the PPMs or your EC he's talking about.
Exactly. So my runoff, I'm checking my runoff in the bottom of my pots. I run my pots on risers, so they're lifted up, so I'm able to stick the reader right
using
in
the old Blue Lab, are you?
Using Blue Lab.
Ooh.
Blue Lab reader. Yep. And I'm able to check the runoff and see that I'm coming down in my numbers. Do you know what I mean? And then, like I said, after that first week, depending on, so here's another thing too. I don't ramp down a whole lot on the P and K. I just make sure and bring my base down. So my boosters and stuff like that, I'm still running my nutrient booster. Just so you know. And then, yeah. So if at the end of week 6, I'm starting to see a couple of browns here and there, that tells me okay, it's starting to finish. You know what I mean? So that's good. And I kind of know. Usually from the strain, you kind of know. So after the first time, this is what I do the first time, and then I'll ride it out, and I'll at that point I'm locked in. You know what I mean? I'm gonna continue my flush, and so I'll run my sugars, and I'll run like SLF 100 that week, real heavy, to break out any salt buildups.
Those enzymes gonna break down those salts.
Enzymatic cleansing, yep, clean that shit out, and it breaks it all down and helps break it loose from the medium, gets it all down. So I'll run my enzymes, or you can run anything though. You could run you could run flawless finish from advanced, or you could run Clearex, or any citric based cleanser that'll help break up those salts. I guess a flawless finish probably doesn't help break it up. Just kind of like it tells the plant to stop, or something like that. Changes the molecular structure of the nutrient composition. But anyway.
Way better way to think about everything is the way you're putting it out. Because when I first started, I'd follow that feeding schedule that they'd give you to a T.
Right.
And at week 5, 6, they're still telling you full nutrients, full nutrients. So by the time I should be flushing, I'm still giving that motherfucker full 1,300 ppm, burning the shit out of it.
Right.
And then
I'm still keeping my PK up there at that 6 week. Like I said, I cut my nutrients in half. So what I mean by that is I cut my base in half. I'm still running my PK usually at the same height, that week, because I want to keep my phosphorus and potassium up there. I just kind of depleted a little bit of the, but like I said, I do make sure that my runoff's about half.
Mm-hmm.
So, or just seeing it come down. And then I start, as long as I start seeing those ambers, then I'll go ahead and continue to ramp down. And then I do 2 weeks of flush. So the first week to get it going, and cocoa or peat, or doesn't matter, peat is, I guess, way more important. Like Pro Mix or something like that. You need to really flush it out. And I've, and I know a couple of people that they do a leach. And I think, do you know what a leach is? Do you know how that works?
Mm-mm.
So, ooh, money. Got that trap phone. Anyway, leach. So what a leach is what'll happen is you can fill the plant up from the bottom and have it absorb the nutrients or absorb what you're feeding it. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Like bottom feeding.
Yeah, like bottom feeding. Exactly. So if you put a whole bunch of like just clear stuff in the bottom, like 0 ppm water or whatever, and you have it absorb that into it, it'll absorb all of the nutrients that are sitting in that level too, and it'll help clean it out. Does that make sense?
A little bit, yeah. Just haven't heard that one.
Yeah, or if you, that's, leaching. A lot of people will leach the first week or something. I don't do it, but that's from my understanding. That's kind of how it works.
The shit out of this plant.
You can even do it from the top down a different way, but it's kind of just like flooding the plant and causing it to absorb. It's causing it to dilute the clean with what's in the media, and then you let it free and flush it, type of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like soaking and then flushing. Totally, dude. But anyway, so yeah, I'll do that. Not necessarily the leach, but I'll flush real good that at the end of week 6 if I'm seeing those browns come in. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Yeah. And then what I'll do is I'll continue to feed with just my sugars and my SLF, and I'll run that with. You can optionally run like 1 part per million, or 1 milliliter per gallon of your base nutrients still at this point to keep the plant from cannibalizing. A lot of people talk about, okay, if I deprive the plant of any nutrients, it causes it to cannibalize, which causes it to degrade the amount of THC or to draw in THC from itself. Does that make sense? Or use its actual sugars that are the plant's oils and the makeup that the plant has spent all this time to build up as food, since you're depriving it of food. Does that make sense?
And it's going to be a little bit different if you're in cocoa versus someone that's in a bunch of ocean forest or.
Yeah, ocean forest and stuff like that. That's going to hold on to a lot. So
more.
it's going to be, you're not going to have as much of an issue with that. But somebody that's in cocoa or hydro or anything like that, when you cut them off, they're done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They don't have anything to eat. And so
that's why he's speaking of cannibalism.
Yeah, that's why I'm speaking of cannibalism. Yeah, because this could go with anybody. And for my situation, this is what does happen. It does happen like that, and so that degrades the THC. And so what you have to do is, I kind of feel like it's a good way to do it, but I honestly think it's a give take. I think if you do it with a little bit of base still in there for your, so we're talking a 2-week flush, right? Until we're finished. The last 2 weeks, that's what I'm talking about. If for that first week of real flush, so that would be my week 7, basically, right? Or depending on my strain, I'm running 8-9 weeks. My first week of real flush would be the end of week 7 or the end of week 8, depending on if it was 8 or 9. And so for that first week, sugars is all I run in SLF. But if you don't want to cannibalize it, you might run 1 mil a gallon or something of base. But here's the give and take. Doing it without any nutrients, I feel like if it does cannibalize, yes, it does take away from the amount of THC. But the amount of THC and stuff that I grow is so high, and most of the stuff that's available out there, it's so high, you're not going to notice a minimal amount, especially if it's just for yourself, unless you're in some pissing contest with somebody. You know what I mean? So I would rather have a clean, completely white ash, degraded plant rather than keeping it alive and healthy for that first week of flush to keep it from cannibalizing.
And that's going to be how you're going to be able to tell how good you flushed is that final product when it's done, cured, everything else. You go to burn it up,
Right.
Ash is going to be the
A bit.
final.
A lot of it has to do with
factor.
drying too, but the ash is definitely going to tell you at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, yeah, that's kind of how I do my flesh the first week. I will personally just do sugars, RO water with my sugars and my SLF. That's pretty much it. I don't use anything else. And then the last week, just completely RO water. That's it. And I try to get sure my ppms on when I'm getting my at the week end of week 7. After that first week of sugar and SLF, or if you decide to run the 1 milligallon, you want to be a THC chaser, that's fine.
THC chasers.
Yeah, you want to be one of those guys that's trying to win a cup. It's still going to come back clean. You know what I mean? It's not going to have a residual. It's still a good way to do it. You know, but I just like it super clean, like super clean. So at the end of week 7, if you're after that first week of doing your initial flush week, and you're gonna start your RO week or whatever, check your ppms. If you're not equal to, what you're feeding, you want that whole last 7 days to be 0 ppm or as damn close as you can be. Like for instance, this last time I was at like 80 ppms by the time I was ended with my first week of flush week. So
Don't panic when your plant starts yellowing out.
it's supposed to do that.
Yeah, I get a lot of people that are like, "Oh, my plant's turning yellow." Oh, what week are you in? 7, 8. Well, fuck.
Yeah, my plants do that at week 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not at week 6. Some at the end of week 6 they'll start yellowing out.
Yeah, that's just it's.
So that's you telling. It's just like in the fall, just like out in natural. You look out out across the world when fall comes. What happens? It changes colors.
Mm-hmm.
It's 'cause it's
you don't got to
dying.
run out there and give your tree some more booster to keep it coloring out, man.
Yeah, you could probably. You could feed it some nitrogen and stuff. That just is the way that's telling you the plant's deprived of its nutrients. It's a good sign that it's getting a good flush. If your plants are still bright green and dark green and all that when the time you get done flushing at the end of week 7, keep flushing. Don't cut them down. You know what I mean? There's a reason that they're not turning that color is because they still have an abundance of nutrients available to them. So when you try to smoke this, it's going to have a buildup of minerals in it. You know what I mean? That's where you get the dark ash. That's when I say when you smoke anything that's got a nice clear ash, you burn a joint and it's nice and white.
Don't spend 8, 9, even more weeks on something just to ruin the flavor by not flushing it properly.
Yeah,
Ooh.
just this stuff tastes like nothing but I don't know perfume. It's really spicy and perfumey. People like to call. You ever had anybody tell you that weed was really perfumey?
Mm-hmm.
Man, weed's really perfumey. It's the nutrients. I mean, there's some strains out there that they have like a little bit of a spice or a perfumey taste. Vanilla Kush to me has a kind of a perfumey taste, the real one. But on a general basis, if it tastes like your grandma's purse, it probably has too much nutrients in it.
Yeah, if it looks fucking amazing and then you go to smoke and it tastes like shit 9 out of 10 times, it's they didn't flush it properly.
Yeah, and you don't get any of the real flavor out of the weed. That's the unfortunate part. So that's pretty much all that there is to it. We didn't touch on. There's a ton more stuff we could have touched on, but that gives you a basic idea of getting through that. In there in the middle, we talked about boosters. There's all kinds of boosters. Every nutrient line has its bloom booster. That's just going to provide more phosphorus and potassium. That's all it is. It's just bringing up the phosphorus and potassium numbers. Those are the things that can help boosting. Like he said, mammoth. Mammoth pea is a very dangerous but very useful product that is full of microbes that help make phosphorus and potassium available, and it does a damn good job of doing what it does. I personally have used it before, and it works.
I'm using a sample right now. Not sure if I'll continue, but
I don't know. I have this spot on my arm, and I'm afraid that I spilled some on me at one point after hearing about it, though.
you're all paranoid.
I can say I'm gonna be using a glove from now on that stuff. But yeah, there's bloom boosters. There's terpenators. So let's talk a little bit about terpenators. We'll just talk about a couple of things that could be
Terpinator, and then there's terpenes.
terpenes and what those are. Oh, there's
There's the
sugary.
sugary.
There's all kinds of like flavor enhancers, right? For during flower. Uh, the speculism is real, man. Those things work. They work for what they're intended for. They're intended to change the flavor or to add more flavor. So if you have flavorless weed, it's a good way to go. You know what I mean? If you want to have weed that tastes like lemon, pine sol, terpenes does the job.
But if you have a blueberry strain and then you go and add the lemon terpenes, that shit ain't gonna taste like blueberry. It's just gonna taste
Tastes
like
like
straight up lemon terpenes. Changes it.
It would be a good test to just do like a half feeding of those lemon terpenes from the Solitech to Dean Beans' fucking blueberry cut.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I'd like to, because it just seems to me that stuff, the terpene, the lemon shit, just totally.
It destroyed that bud, didn't it?
Yeah, but maybe with something.
What we're talking about is I'll just talk about it real quick. I don't care. I did a test run on a crop for the terpenes stuff that Solitech makes. And if you ever smell the stuff out of the bottle, it smells like lemon pledge pine sol or something. It smells really good though. It's like a combination between that and like lemon pie or something. But yeah, I used it at their suggested rate. I even didn't use it during the flush cycle. I used it during the flower cycle. I didn't use it at all during the flush cycle. Like normally I'll run my sugars. I didn't run that because it just my room reeked like lemon pledge pine sol, and so I yeah, I didn't run it in flush or anything, and we ended up cleaning it out. The bud burned hella white, but the oil that was made off of it straight up tastes like lemon pledge fucking pine sol. Like, and I'm not even exaggerating. Am I exaggerating, CJ?
No, it was Mr. Cleed.
It was good. You're right. So, like, let me give. I'm not putting the stuff down. So I'm gonna give it props for what it does for what it's used for.
It was tasty and lemony. It just, you could tell it was like artificial. There's just something artificial about it.
It wasn't super tasty and lemony
Mm.
to me. It was a little bit sweet. You know what I mean? Because dabs are sweet sometimes. It was a good extract. Good. The person that did it was a very professional and very good person at what they do, and yeah. Well, here's what it's good for. Honest truth. You can take that stuff, and if you had a banger of a cut, a commercial cut, that you didn't have time to put all that effort into making sure that those terps came out, the natural smells, or if there wasn't a whole lot there, but the percentage of THC was very high, like a 30% big bud cut that just had no flavor at all. But when you blasted the oil out of it, you were getting like 30% returns. You know what I mean? And there's cuts like that out there, but people are like, God damn it, this would be $1 million cut if it just had some flavor, some terpenes. So you could take that stuff and you could feed that to that cut, and you'd have $1 million cut. But all the oil would taste like lemon pledge pine sol. But you'd get a lot of it, and it'd be high THC. So that'd be a situation where it'd be really good.
Really good, a little shady.
Yeah, a little shady, but it'd be legit, kind of. It'd be better than smoking blank dabs. It'd be worth it. You could call it lemon pledge pine sol. I don't know. But if you had like a normal flavored weed that's really good, I wouldn't suggest adding these enhancers to it. There's certain enhancers. I believe terpinator is one of them.
Still use sugars, just don't use the flavored version.
Yeah, still definitely use sugars. So Emerald Harvest makes their honeycomb, and that's just sugars. And they call it an aroma enhancer, but it's not really. It's just sugars. It's what's in it? Agave, pure cane sugar. It's all raw. It's all good stuff. It's not like there's no essential oil additives or whatever in there. You know, I like to bring the flavor of the weed out. I don't like to bring add all this other stuff into it. Some people believe in the sugary, and I think any of these enhancers you can use them at a lower rate to just give it a hint of it. I used it at the suggested rate, so I figured that's what it should be at. But that's my take on the enhancers. They're good for what they are intended for. If you have good cuts of weed, maybe try the terpinator or some sugars or something like that. But terpinator, I don't think adds to the flavor really into it. Doesn't have a whole lot of smell or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more. It's got sugars and stuff in it. So some of them are good, but be aware you don't want an enhancer unless that's what you're going for. Unless you want to add grape flavor, you want to add lemon flavor, you want to add apple flavor, because there's those options out there.
Yeah,
If-
some people just really want the shit to taste a certain way. I mean, more power to you.
Yeah, and like I said, if you have a cut that produces it's frosty and it just doesn't have a lot of flavor, it might be for you. So that's an option. And then as far as boosters, there's a million out there. Let's just name a few here, so it gets the speculism away. Um, there's Overdrive. There's Big Bud. There's Hammerhead from Advanced. You have
Cola.
PK 1314 from Canna. You know what I mean? You got King Cola from an Emerald. There's mid, early, and late bud boosters from Current Culture. General Hydro has some Cali Bloom. That's a major numbered booster. That's almost like a final phase finisher. So that'll give you an idea. The difference you can tell between these boosters, they're all PK, but if you look at the numbers, some of them are very, very high numbers. Those are going to be a late phase bloom finishers. And those things are going to be useful for a couple of things. If you use them right, they can be used to help swell the plant out and finish it on that last week before flush weeks. If you want to use it in a way that forces a plant to finish, like a 10-week or 12-week plant to finish in 9 weeks, you can use it a couple of weeks before you want to start flush week, and you can force that bitch to finish. It will swell. It won't swell and be as big as it was going to be, but it'll go into its final ripening phase early. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So that really kind of sums it up on all the boosters. I think that kind of does all that. Any other comments you have?
Any other comments, complaints, gripes? Or... No, man. I think we got that.
So
Pretty sweet.
should we move into curing it, or?
I think we should save that for. We'll do a part 2. So this episode will be flowering,
Yeah.
and then the next episode will be harvesting and curing.
Gotcha. Harvesting and curing. Yeah, that's an episode in itself. To me, that's almost more important than
That way we
the
can spend
flowering
some
part
time
of
on it and actually give the facts, and not just sit here the last 10 minutes and try to whip them out some information.
it. Yeah, we'll go in depth on that one. Sorry to everybody for missing last week's episode. We ended up having a pretty crazy 420.
Yeah, I don't remember the last couple of weeks, so sorry we don't have an episode out. 420 gets a little crazy around here.
Yeah, especially when you're dabbing all the time, and I think we ended up smoking a couple 3 grams that day, easy.
Yeah, easy.
And man, it was a ridiculous hard time. So
We'll try
A
to get them
good
out. I was gonna say retardedly. Sorry, not politically friendly there. We'll try to get them out repetitiously every Monday. What's the word?
Repetitiously
Every whatever the fuck.
on the schedule.
Schedule. Yeah.
Yeah,
Every Monday from
reoccurring.
now on.
That's may or may not happen.
But we do a lot of dabs, so that may or may not happen. Also, a lot more video podcasts in the future. Look out for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to arrange.
More videos in
I
general.
wanted to do one. Maybe we could talk to the shack and doing one at the shack.
Maybe.
I don't know.
We'll
See what's
see
going
what we got going on. Check out our Instagram at the Grow Green Podcast.
Yeah, check out our Facebook and our webpage at the growgreenpodcast.com or the Grow Green Podcast on Facebook.
YouTube.
Shoot us a like. Make sure you go ahead and get in on the with just a few more days to enter on that Instagram.
Yeah, and there's only a couple people that entered, so you could probably win right now. All you got to do is go over to the Instagram at the Grow Green Podcast and
Drop a comment.
Drop a comment on that picture that's got like a great white T-shirt shark thing going on and some other shit.
Win a pack of seeds.
Look at that picture and just type in.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Eric Weed's a piece of shit, and you'll fucking win it.
Oh man, doubt that. Doubt you win that
Automatic winner, first one. Get it done.
Oh, good lord! He's gonna pull seeds out of his personal pack.
Personal box.
Right on. Right on. Well, I think that pretty much sums up the whole flowering thing. If you have any questions or comments, shoot us back. We're not going to go into the harvesting or curing or anything. We'll touch on that next time. But make sure you stay tuned and listen to us. And stay high, my friends.
Stay high. If you're on iTunes, please leave a comment, negative or positive, and I will read it.
You're going to read the fuck out of it.
I think we're done.
I'm going to read it on the air.
So, yeah, even if it's negative, I just want some comments, some interaction.
Yeah, there you go. Comments going to get read on there. We'll do a comments on the air section.
I'm going to go take some dabs now.
I'm going to take a fat dab.
Later.
More. Going to get even higher than I sound already. Peace out, Eric Weed.
Let's go.
Grow Green Podcast, we out.
It's the Grow Green Podcast. Roll another fat one, puffing on that first class green. Take another puff, puff, hey. Drifting the clouds up and away. Hear all about cannabis, horticulture, plus cultivation, news and entertainment. Not forgetting Datty, the cute Dalmatian. Grow Green is so amazing. We do massive dabs, not talking about the dance move. Grow Green, put your lighters up, my dude. Hash oil, and it's so great. Smoke cannabis every single day. We do massive dabs, not talking about the dance move. Grow Green, put your lighters up, my dude. Hash oil, get that high grade. Smoke cannabis every single day.